Welcome back into HQ Spotlight on this Monday. Can you smell the peanuts and Cracker Jacks? Baseball begins this week. Opening night is Wednesday between the Yankees and the Giants, and then opening day on Thursday. If your parents were cool like my parents did, they pulled me out of school, and it was a family holiday. We are about to get into some bold predictions. What can we expect for the 2026 season? Let's welcome in our good friend, MLB expert Matt Snyder. Check out all of his articles on CBSSports.com. Bold predictions with a bold tie. Let's start with Aaron Judge here. Look, I mean, it feels like we just give him AL MVP now. He won it in 2022, 24, 25. Your bold prediction when it comes to Aaron Judge?
Yes, the bold prediction here is that he will not win American League MVP. Yeah, he's won 3 of the last 4. The one time he didn't win it, Shohei Ohtani was still in the American League. But I think there's going to be a changing of the guard here. There are several reasons for that. First off, I do think the Yankees are going to be great again. I do think he is the best hitter in baseball. Yes, if we're just talking about hitting only, he's better than Shohei Ohtani. But there's still a risk as he gets up into his mid-30s that he's going to go down with an injury for a little bit. You also have to consider voter fatigue. I think sometimes voters just get tired of voting for the same guy over and over and over. And we saw that there was a lot of discussion around Cal Raleigh last year when Raleigh got to 60 home runs for the Mariners. I think there are some viable candidates in the American League as well. Bobby Witt Jr. I just talked about Cal Raleigh of the Mariners. If we're going to stick with the Mariners, I like them a lot this year. Julio Rodriguez. He hit like an MVP caliber offensive player, probably from about the middle of May on. If he gets that slow start finally figured out and he actually starts hot, Julio's a guy that could absolutely win MVP. Maybe Vladimir Guerrero Jr., maybe it's his turn. I just think that somebody else is going to step up. And if you said, hey, the most likely MVP candidate in the American League, who's that going to be? I would say Judge. But if you said I can have Judge or the field, I'm going to take the field. So I'll go with my my hot take here being it will not be Aaron Judge.
When you mentioned Shohei Ohtani, did you see that his WBC jersey went for $1.5 million?
No, I didn't.
Yes!
Not that I'm surprised.
That's insane. Like, that is
yes,
nuts.
It is.
Our producer does want to put you on the spot and said if you did have to pick a player, which you already said, if it was Aaron Judge at the field, you go with the field, maybe 1 or 2 names that you really think have the chance to win it.
I'll go with Bobby Witt Jr. there. Okay. He's like such a good all-around player. We saw his defense on display a lot in the World Baseball Classic now that you mentioned the WBC, and he'll fill up that stat sheet. He might lead the league in hits, doubles, triples. He'll hit over 30 home runs. He can steal 30 bases. He can do it all. And if the Royals make a run at the AL Central title, Bobby Witt Jr. is the best challenger for Judge there.
It was a lot of fun to watch in the WBC. So speaking of the Royals, Bobby Witt Jr., cough, cough, you have a bold prediction for the Royals. What is it?
Yeah, I actually didn't mean to do that segue, but maybe I shouldn't have said that and should have just let everybody think that I had it set up this well. I've got the Royals getting 3 players to 30 home runs this season, and that might not sound too ridiculous, but they have never had that happen in the history of the franchise. In fact, they've only gotten 2 players to 30 home runs twice before. 1985 when it was Steve Balboni and George Brett, and last season with Vinny Pasquantino and Salvador Perez. In addition to Pasquantino and Perez, Bobby Witt Jr. has gotten there before. And Jack Caglione, he didn't look that great as a rookie, but we know he has that kind of raw power. They could well get 4 guys there, but let's just take some baby steps here and say this time they're going to get 3 guys to 30 home runs. The fence has moved in a little bit in Kauffman Stadium. That will help them a little bit. There are some of Bobby Witt Jr.'s doubles last year turned into home runs that might have gotten him there. But I like at least 3 of that 4 to get to 30, and it would be, as I said, the first time in the history of the Royals.
Do you have a preference between them and the Tigers in the AL Central?
I actually have the Tigers
really
winning it.
Okay.
I have the Tigers winning it, but it's really close, and I would not be surprised either way. I could see the Royals really putting everything together and actually making a run to the World Series here. They have that kind of upside.
All right, awesome. Yeah, Tigers right now plus 115, Royals plus 210. So if you like the Royals, maybe get a little early money on that. Okay, let's talk about Elly De La Cruz, and he is running, literally running in your bold prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to have him making a run at 100. I'm not going to say he steals 100 bases because, holy cow, that still seems a little out of reach. But I'll say over 80 here. We'll be thinking about 100 for a little bit. He stole 67 in 2024, his first full season in the majors. I think he will improve his on-base percentage this time around. It was similar 2024 and 2025. He only had 37 last year, but we found out in the offseason that around June, sometime in June, he partially tore his left quad, and that's why in the second half he barely ran. He only had 8 stolen bases between August and September, 5 in 1 month, 3 in the other, 3 in a month for Elly. Just doesn't seem right. So I think we're going to see the same Elly De La Cruz that we saw in 2023 when he came up as a rookie, in 2024 when he led the majors with 67 steals. I'd say we're going to go over 80. And again, for a lot of the season, we're going to be talking about, hey, could he get to 100? And we're going to start looking at the guys who got to 100 throughout history, such as Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman. And we're going to think about that for a little bit because of Elly this year. He's going to come out of the gates hot.
Maybe not making it to 100, but at least making run for it. Matt Snyder giving us some bold predictions for this upcoming baseball season. You got one for the Brewers, who made it all the way to the NLCS, eventually lost to the World Series champ, the Dodgers. But what are you thinking when it comes to the Brewers this season?
Yeah, the Brewers actually led the majors in wins last year. They led the majors in run differential. They were amazing last season, winning the division, getting the 1 seed in the National League. They got a bye. The Dodgers actually didn't get a bye. They had to play in the wild card round. But this time around, I have the Brewers missing the playoffs. So I have them falling from the best record in all of baseball to missing the playoffs. They had a 30-4 stretch in there, and that was a big reason why they had the best record in baseball. I just don't see that kind of magic and that kind of run happening this season. Freddie Peralta has been traded to the Mets. Brandon Woodruff, there's health concerns there. There's concerns about Jacob Misiorowski sticking in the rotation. They picked up Andrew Vaughn off the scrap heap from the White Sox, and he was amazing. Looked like one of the best sluggers in baseball for that stretch when they went 30-4. I just think so many things went right during that run that it's not very repeatable. I've got the Cubs over them in the division. You know, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Phillies are better than the Brewers. The Braves might be better. And then you've got to contend in the wild card picture with teams like the Giants and the Padres. In the NL Central, the Pirates are much better. The Reds are a playoff caliber team. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Brewers, and I think they're going to miss the playoffs.
So they took on the Dodgers. The Dodgers went on to win the World Series. Looking at the odds, the Dodgers right now are plus 200, 2-1 odds. After that, you have to go to plus 1,000 where you find the Yankees and so on and so on. They are heavy favorites to win the World Series. And you have a very bold prediction when it comes to the Dodgers.
Yeah, this is a little more bold than the Brewers missing the playoffs. I'm going to say the Dodgers do not, they'll make the playoffs. I don't want to set it up like that. They do not win the National League. They might get to the NLCS. They might get knocked out in the NLDS. They might have to be a wild card like they were last year, and they might get knocked out there. But I'm going to say somehow they don't have every single thing click right for them in October the way they did, at least through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs last season. And I'm going to say that they get knocked off. And we know that it can happen. We saw it in 2023 when they won 100 games and they got swept by the 84-win Diamondbacks. We saw it in 2022 when they won 111, one of the greatest regular season teams in history, and they lost in the NLDS to the Padres. 2021, they won 106 games and lost in the NLCS. This happens. This is possible. Just because they're back-to-back champs doesn't mean they're invincible in the first several rounds of the playoffs. And that is a big part of my thinking here. It is that so much stuff has to go right in the playoffs. So much to win it. And we've seen how things can easily go wrong and fall off the rails. That they've won the last 2 World Series, and we just saw the graphic on there, the three-peat teams. It has only happened once since 1974. It has only happened with the 98 through 2000 Yankees, and then we saw the Yankees lose in 2001. We saw them not win the World Series again until 2009, even though they had some great teams in there. Even having the most talent in baseball and being the best team in baseball does not mean you've got a cakewalk to the World Series. I just think somehow, some way this year, it's not going to break right for them.
Okay, not going to break right for the Dodgers. Your final bold prediction here does have to do with the World Series. And I'm going to preface this by saying that we have seen over time, winning can be contagious for certain cities. It has happened before with multiple teams winning multiple championships. The LA's done it, Boston, Detroit, Tampa, New York City, Vegas, Chicago, DC, Pittsburgh. It has happened time and time again, and apparently it is now happening in Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Mariners to win the World Series. The Cinderella story last year when they got all the way to Game 7 of the ALCS. It looked like they might go to their first ever World Series, and I say that because they are the only team in Major League Baseball out of 30 that has never played in the World Series. That's why it makes this play to have them win the World Series seem so bold. They're still one of 5 to have never won it. But again, they're the only one that's never been there. And I have a little bit of a soft spot for tortured fan bases, and the Mariners have to be the most tortured fan base at this point, especially getting to Game 7 last year. They had that 3-2 lead in the ALCS. Feels like, oh man, they only have to win 1 of 2 in Toronto, and they couldn't get it done. What a bummer. But that's a good offense despite the ballpark. They've got stars: Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Josh Naylor, Randy Arozarena. You look at that rotation between Wu, Logan Gilbert. Those two potentially could be in the Cy Young mix. George Kirby could be very great. Luis Castillo's been great for a lot of his career. And then you've got Andres Munoz at the back end of that bullpen, one of the best closers in baseball. They've got every ingredient that you need. I think it's a relatively weak American League West, which means they should be able to grab one of those buys. And then when you look at the playoffs, it's, do you have starting pitching that can get deep into the game? Yes, they do. Do you have an offense that can make stuff happen, both on the bases, stealing bases, such as Julio and Arozarena? They do. Do you have power? Absolutely, they have power. Do you have back into the bullpen that can shut teams down? Absolutely. They have every ingredient you need. So I'm going with the Mariners to win their first ever World Series.
Okay, let's see if it can happen. As I said, winning can be contagious for cities. Matt, hang on just a second. We're not done with you quite yet. As mentioned, opening day is Thursday. There's actually opening night on Wednesday between the Yankees and the Giants, but opening day, we are so excited about that. Take a look at that. Skeens versus Peralta, the Pirates at the Mets, Rangers, Philly, D-back, Dodgers. But look at the pitching matchups we get on Thursday for opening day, March 26th. Coming up, so speaking of baseball, we're going to try to make you a little money on that. You heard some bold predictions from Matt. Our betting expert, Mike McClure, joins in for some future plays for the 2026 season. It has been the recent era of the Dodgers, and that continued in last year's World Series with a dramatic 7-game series against the Blue Jay. Look at Mookie Betts there. Dodgers winning in 11 innings in Game 7 for a final score of 5-4, marking their second consecutive championship. The Dodgers are favorites to repeat as World Series champs, but are they the best bet? For more on that, let's try to make you some money. We got Matt Snyder and our betting expert here, Mike McClure, but both are weighing in with their opinions here. So we're going to go through some of the best bets for the upcoming season. Team to hit the season total over. Mike, you're now joining us. We'll start with you.
I like the Kansas City Royals here in this market, Amanda. I think that this is an undervalued team, 82.5. I set their median number at 85.5 here, and I think they've got upside to be a team that can win this division, have 90 wins overall. You look at this. What I like to look at is correlated markets. When you look at like the MVP odds, for example, you've got Bobby Witt second. You look at Rookie of the Year, you've got Carter Jensen third. Looking at Manager of the Year, even Matt Quatraro top 5. I think this is not correlated to where their win total is. I'm going over 82.5 here.
Yeah, if you saw the previous segment, you know that I love the Royals, and I said they could make a deep run. So, yeah, I like that play. I'm going to go West. I mentioned earlier that I think the Mariners have it a little easier in the American League West because I don't think it's that tough of a division. Don't know how good the Rangers and Astros are behind them. I like the A's. I like over 75.5 here. They won more than that last year, and I do think that they're improved. They were actually 53-46 in their last 99 games last year. Obviously, that was after a horrible run, but it's like they kind of figured some things out. They had a lot of young talent there, chief among them Nick Kurtz. One of the best young offensive players in all of baseball, but they've also got Tyler Soderstrom, Brent Rooker, Shea Langoliers, maybe Lawrence Butler bounces back. They have one of the better offenses in baseball. We'll see how it goes in the pitching staff, but we've seen Luis Severino do it before. We've seen Jeffrey Springs do it before. We've seen Aaron Savali do it before. Jacob Lopez, Luis Morales have some talent. They've got some talent. Hogan Harris at the back end of that bullpen. So I like the A's. If not to make the playoffs, at least to win over 75.5 here.
Okay, that's nice. I looked up the last time the A's had a winning season. It was not since 2021. That would be nice for them. So that is the season total over. Let's go to season total under. I have your answers here. And Matt, I'm going to go with you because this is the fan base that is going to whine so much more.
That's okay. Look, the Phillies have had a great run. They've been over this for 23, 24, 25, 3 seasons in a row, but I'm going to go under 89.5 wins here. There's actually potential for a major collapse if everything went wrong. I don't think every single thing's going to go wrong, but look, They had Zach Wheeler go down with a blood clot in his shoulder area last year, and then he had thoracic outlet syndrome. He's working his way back. He might not miss that much time, but you still don't know how he's going to be when he gets back. Aaron Nola had a season last season that was marred by injury, but also looked like he might be starting in his decline. Now, he looked good in the WBC. Maybe he staves that off a little bit, but still, there's concerns there. Ranger Suarez signed with the Red Sox. So there are concerns in the rotation, but also if I look at that lineup, after Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, and Kyle Schwarber, it takes a dive, and you're asking for a lot from Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott and Adolis Garcia if he's going to bounce back, and JT Realmuto if he turns back the clock. So I don't really love that offense that much. I think the Phillies take a step back, so I'm under 89.5.
Love it, Matt. Speaking of taking a step back, how about the Houston Astros? I know you've talked at length about the AL West. I think it's Seattle's division at this point, and I think this Houston team has a real issue on their hands right now because this club, the core of it, right, they are aging, and that is not a recipe for success in what is always a very, very competitive division. I've also got a little concern in terms of the pitching rotation, and then, of course, their best hitter, Yordan Alvarez. I've had some major injury concerns and durability concerns there. I think they're going to find themselves in a number of competitive games in division and in the American League in general. So I think you're paying a little inflated number here if you were looking to go over because of the success that they have had over the last decade. I set this one down to 83.5. I'll go under 85.5 here for the Astros.
Mike, I am a very petty person. My family is split between Rangers fans and Houston fans. My family lives in Houston now. And I will be texting this to my father and my sister as soon as I get off air, maybe a little bit before. Hopefully they're watching. They're not. Let's go to surprise team to make the playoffs. And you guys are now convincing me to be a little bullish on each of these teams. Matt, who are you going with?
Yeah, first of all, pettiness in sports fandom is a big plus. So I'm with you on the pettiness there. I just talked about how I don't know if the A's are necessarily going to make the playoffs, but I saw the plus 410 on there. I was like, you know what? Let's get a little crazy here. I know that the AL wildcard field is going to be very crowded. Whoever doesn't win the division there between the Blue Jays, Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, and maybe even throw the Rays in there, they're all going to be in the wildcard mix. Whoever doesn't win the AL Central between the Tigers and Royals is going to be in that mix as well. But I'm going to go with the A's. I just talked about how much I like them. I like the number here at plus 410. So I'll say the A's sneak in and get that final wild card spot.
Like the long shot on the A's. Back to the Royals here for me, plus 120. I would make the case it should be closer to minus 140 here. I'd basically be flipping them with the Astros in that American League. I think they've got a great shot to win the division, but as Matt mentioned, if they don't, I think they're going to be right there with the Tigers and challenging with some of those AL East teams for one of the better records in the American League. Again, just love the composition of the roster. Love the changes at their home ballpark at Kauffman Stadium as well. Moving the fences in, lowering the height, going to help guys like Jack Caglione and Vinny Pasquantino. Obviously, Bobby Witt will get his. Love the Royals here. I think they're very undervalued still, plus 120 to make the playoffs.
Mike, you were literally reiterating what Matt and I were talking about earlier, saying that they were going to give the Tigers a serious run for the money, could win the division. So let's go with the team. Mike, I'll start with you here to miss the playoffs, a surprise team.
Look, a lot of synergy with Matt. It's the Phillies. I think that the Philadelphia Phillies, while they are a great baseball team, have the unfortunate reality of playing in a very, very tough division. It's a division that you just simply have to spend a lot. And even when you're spending a lot, you're essentially guaranteed to be in competitive games. Losing Zach Wheeler to start the season, I think, is not ideal. I think they're going to get off to a little bit of a slow start and put themselves in a little bit of a hole, because while the Mets have underperformed for what they've spent historically, I think this is the season where they finally start to pull it together a little. I think the Atlanta Braves are a little more healthy and a little undervalued as well. So I'm going to back the Phillies here to simply miss the playoffs because I don't think they're winning the division, and I think the NL is going to be sneaky competitive for those wild card spots.
Yeah, I agree with the latter part there, and that's why I have the Brewers missing the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win that division. I don't think they're going to come up with a stretch where they win 30 out of 34 games with all that magic they had going on, and I do think that the rotation starts out behind the eight ball here. for having traded Freddie Peralta, knowing the health issues that Brandon Woodruff has had with his shoulder, knowing that Jacob Mrazowski just doesn't really get deep into games. You're going to have to lean heavily on guys like Logan Henderson and Chad Patrick, and those guys might be dudes. But 200 innings worth, I'm just not seeing that. So I think they're going to have rotation problems, if not right away, eventually throughout the course of the season. And I don't think they're going to have a ton of magic in the bullpen. The offense looks pretty good, but not amazing. So I've got the Brewers missing the playoffs.
Okay, there you go. We're making our way to the World Series here. Let's go with AL winner. Mike, we'll start with you.
How about the Yankees? I know no one really wants to hear that necessarily, but it's the Yankees for me. I think it's finally time. Look, they've been close. They're always going to be close. It's what you get when you have that kind of payroll. Very difficult division overall. However, I think that they are still loaded on paper, and I think that they'll be aggressive. The one thing you can count on with the Yankees is simply being aggressive at the deadline, doing what it takes every single time to essentially push the chips in the middle. I think that happens here. And what I will say, part of my bold prediction that you didn't ask for, Tarek Skubal will be pitching for the New York Yankees in the postseason. And that is ultimately what's going to put them over the top to win the American League.
That would be huge. I don't have the Tigers falling out of it.
That bomb.
Okay. Yeah, I've got the Mariners. I like plus 500 on the Mariners. I could see the Blue Jays, Yankees. I could see the Tigers, not without Skubal. I could see the Royals. But I'm, as I mentioned earlier, I really, really like the pieces the Mariners have for a playoff run.
You just sent Tigers fans like into a tizzy. Okay, let's move on here. NL winner, Matt, who are you going with?
I'm going with the Cubs, as we discussed earlier. I'm going to go with one of those Dodgers early exits, which means I had to look elsewhere. And it is very, as Mike said, sneaky competitive. The Cubs have balance and depth, and that's something that you can withstand injuries. You can withstand slumps. The lineup between Michael Busch, Alex Bregman, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Pete Armstrong, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, one of the most underrated players in baseball. It's very balanced top to bottom. Same thing with the rotation between Matthew Boyd, Cade Horton, Shota Imanaga, Edward Cabrera, Jamison Tyone, and the return of Justin Steele. I love the balance and depth, so I'm going to go with the Cubs.
Look, I love the Cubs to win their division, but it's the Dodgers here, Amanda. They're the best team in Major League Baseball. They're going to make their way back. Whether they win it or not, we'll see. Dodgers win the National League.
Okay, so taking a look at each of your World Series, Matt, you're going with the Cubs and the Mariners. Mike, you've got the Dodgers and the Yankees. I mean, just fine. Give us your World Series winner. Mike, since you were very chalky, we're going to start with you.
Hey, it's the classic American underdog story, the Yankees and the Dodgers. Give me the New York Yankees here with Tarek Skubal pitching in the World Series for the Yankees.
And mine is much more fun, and since we're sticking with the fun, the Mariners winning their first ever World Series title would be the icing on the cake there.
I am going to clip all of this, and we're going to check in a handful of months once we get to October, see who is there. Matt Snyder, Mike McClure, we appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day. There you go. Shortest odds to win the World Series. All the teams that they mentioned, the teams that they have winning, they are toward the top. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mariners, followed by the Mets there. But then the Phillies, they're not so hot on the Phillies. 16-1 odds, though, to win the World Series.